Hello everyone, my name is Abby and I'm a young adult assistant at the Twin Lakes Library System and I use she, her pronouns. So today I'm going to be talking to you all about retellings for Must Read Monday. So if you don't know what a retelling is kind of like when an author or whoever decides to take a classic story and put a new twist on it. So that might be making it more modern or using a different character perspective or a bunch of other things, but that's like the very generic basic description of it. So today I'm going to be talking to you about 3 books that are retellings. So here you go. So the first book that I'm going to be talking to you about is Pride by Ibi Zobi. And this is on audiobook on Hoopla and it's recommended for ages 13 and up. So this book is a retelling of Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen, and it follows 5 Haitian Dominican sisters living in a neighborhood called Bushwick in Brooklyn, New York. And our main protagonist of this book is Zuri Benitez, and she loves her neighborhood, she loves the atmosphere, she loves the people, but she's worried because her neighborhood is experiencing gentrification and it's starting to look a lot different from what it used to be, and she's worried that everything is going to change drastically in her neighborhood and it's not going to be the same neighborhood that she's always known. And part of this change that she sees happening happens when a rich family, the Darcys, move across the street from her and her family. And the Darcys have 2 sons, Darius and Ainsley, and Zuri off the bat just does not like them. She doesn't like what they represent. She doesn't like that they kind of are, she feels, participating in changing her neighborhood from what it was into something she doesn't recognize, so she just doesn't like them. But Zuri's older sister, Janae, starts being romantically interested in the older Darcy boy, Ainsley, and so the 2 families sort of become interlinked with each other, or they, come to know each other a little bit better, especially the sisters, with the Darcy boys, which Zuri is not a big fan of. And to make it kind of worse is Zuri and the younger brother, Darius, do not like each other. They both have opinions about each other. It's just they don't like each other. But as the novel goes on, they sort of start to realize that maybe they misjudged one another and need to get to know each other better throughout the novel. So, why I loved this book. So I really enjoyed the modern twist on the story. It's a lot more diverse than the original novel, which is cool to see. I loved the writing style of this book. So I liked how the author changed this. It's still it pays, homage to the original book really well, but it's definitely new and it's all Ibi Zobi's own story. So I liked that. I think it's cool that a lot of retellings I have read or have seen in YA are usually fairy tale, which there's nothing wrong with that, but it was cool to see a classic piece of work like Pride and Prejudice, which is sort of just a story about, human relationships with each other, and it's not like a fantasy be done in a retelling, so that was cool. The narration for the audiobook was amazing, so I've talked about her multiple times because I love her, and she just released a new book, by the way, that everyone should go read, called Cop When You Land, but Elizabeth Acevedo actually narrates the audiobook, and she does amazing. She's narrated both of her other audiobooks that I've listened to and did a great job, and she did a great job this time too. This book also talks about important issues like gentrification. It's not something I've seen very often in YA, so it was great to see that be talked about and addressed as a concept and as something that really happened in the book. I really also enjoyed, this book has kind of an intermixing of, prose that you would see in a typical book, but it also has slam poetry and poetry, which is also just a really cool and different sort of format to do it in, and it really works super well. The poetry is done as if Zuri was writing it herself, and it's just beautiful, and it relays kind of her story very well, and I loved seeing it included. And then the last reason I really liked this book was the Benitez family. So they are all very loving and supportive of each other. The five sisters have a great relationship with each other. They know how to interact. It's very realistic. As someone with a sister, I can say that. It's very realistic, the dynamic. It's also, loving and supportive and inclusive, and it's great. So, before I go on to the next two books, I actually wanted to give you the passcode for the video to make sure that you have watched the video for this summer reading club. So this week's word this video's word is going to be retelling. And I apologize that it looks like that. It's a big word. Okay. So the next book that I'm going to recommend, also I don't know if I said this earlier, but for Pride, that book is recommended for ages 13 and up. So for this book is going to be Study in Charlotte by Brittany Cavallaro. I think that's how you say her last name. And it's on ebook and audiobook format on Hoopla. And Common Sense Media recommends this for ages 14 up. Personally, I think it's probably better for an older audience. There's trigger warnings for sexual assault and drug use in this book, so I would really recommend it more for 15 or 16, just because the content's a little intense, but that is up to your discretion. So, this book is a retelling of Sherlock Holmes, and it follows 16-year-old Charlotte Holmes and Jamie Watson at their Connecticut boarding school. So, in this book, they're actually the descendants of Sherlock Holmes and James Watson, so that was kind of cool. And Jamie has never met Charlotte before, and the relationship between the Holmes family and the Watson family isn't actually very good, but he's always sort of dreamed of meeting her and kind of helping her solve mysteries because Charlotte's actually a very famous detective, big shock. And so he's really excited when he finds out he gets to attend a boarding school that she also attends. However, when he meets her, he realizes she's a lot more complicated than he originally anticipated. She has a lot of trauma and a lot of other things that she's trying to deal and cope with that he was not expecting. So, he has to sort of give her room to sort of be herself and go about her life and, understand herself after what's happened to her. But something ends up happening, and Charlotte's attacker ends up he turns up being murdered in a way that's very similar to a famous Sherlock Holmes mystery. And Charlotte and Jamie are the prime suspects for this crime. Obviously, they didn't do it, but Charlotte and Jamie have to sort of work together to find out who is trying to frame them and why. So, why I loved it. This is actually a series. I think there are 4 books in this series. So that's exciting. It continues, and you get to see more growth. Personally, I love mystery novels, so I loved seeing this mystery, and I don't know about other people, but I'm usually pretty good at guessing what's gonna happen or who's the killer or who, I get the plot pretty quickly on when I'm reading mystery novels. But this one was actually pretty twisty and kept me on my toes, and I actually didn't figure out who was the real person until the end of the book, which was good. It was a well-executed mystery. Charlotte and Jamie's relationship is a cool one. They are very different from each other. They're not similar at all in personality, but they fit really well together. They complement each other super well as a crime-fighting, solving duo, so that was cool. It's fast-paced and really entertaining. You're not going to want to put it down when you're reading it. You're probably just going to want to keep going to figure out what's happening. And I think that it does a really good job at intermixing funny moments and commentary and sarcasm with really serious content. So like I said, there is some heavy content, and it is addressed in the book, and I think that it's important that it's addressed in the book, and to sort of see how Charlotte kind of copes as a survivor of what's happened to her. So it's a well-balanced novel. And then the last book that I am going to be talking about today is To Kill a Kingdom by Alexandra Christo. This book is actually in our collection at the branch at the library. So if you were unaware, we are actually sort of open. You can place books on hold and come through a drive-through and pick up books. So if this book sounds interesting to you, you could place it on hold and then come to our drive-through and we could give it to you. So just as an option. But this is recommended for ages 13 and up. So this book is a Little Mermaid retelling. And not like the Disney Little Mermaid, like the original Little Mermaid. But this book follows Princess Lyra, who is a siren, and sirens in this book, one of the things they do is they sing to princes and trick them in order to rip out their hearts. And Princess Lyra has 17 hearts, so she has a heart for, I think, every year that she's been alive. So, she's a fearsome siren. A lot of people envy her and respect her talent. But after Lyra ends up causing the death of one of her fellow sirens, her mother, the Sea Queen, punishes her and forces Lyra to live as a human. And the only way that Lyra can return to being a siren and back to where her life is to rip out the heart of a prince before the solstice. And Lyra ends up meeting Prince Ellian, who is, a prince, but also an adventurer. And Prince Ellian's goal is to hunt down and destroy every siren that exists, which, doesn't really bode well for Lyra. So they have a tense relationship. But Lyra, under the guise of being a human, tells Ellian that she will help him find a way and discover a way to kill all the sirens and lead him to something that will help him kill all sirens. But they don't, really trust each other, so you're sort of following that. They're both keeping a lot of secrets from each other. So, why I love this. Mermaids and sirens. I think mermaids and sirens are such cool mythological creatures. I really liked seeing Christo's interpretation of the mythology of sirens and mermaids and just how she goes about addressing that. I thought that was really cool and really well done. I would say this is a pretty loose retelling of The Little Mermaid, but that means that a lot of new ideas and themes are talked about and written about, and it's very creative of using the mythology and, paying homage to the original literary source material, but also doing something really fun and exciting and new with it. I really liked Lyra and Ellian's dynamic, so of course they hate each other when they first meet each other, but watching them grow and develop together is so fascinating. I love seeing it. I love seeing those kind of relationship changes in books, so that was fun. Also, I think Lyra is a really cool main character. She's kind of an anti-hero. She does things that you're like, I don't know if I agree with that or if that's not right. But she's also really complex, and she is so strong and smart and powerful. It's just awesome to see her and how she changes and grows throughout the book. One thing also I wanted to mention too is that this is a standalone novel, so it's a fantasy book, but it's not like in a series, which sometimes that could make you nervous in terms of is the world going to be well developed? Is the magic system going to be well developed? Am I going to care about the characters, even though this is a really kind of short little book? You will. There's so much packed into it, and it's not very long, but there's so much into it, and it's really cool. It's a lot more complex than you'd expect it to be. There are a lot of themes that are talked about that I think are interesting and that I wouldn't have expected in just a typical siren mermaid book, but I loved seeing, and I think Christo did a good job with those. Found family. So I always talk about how I love family dynamics, but sometimes your found family is your good family dynamic. So specifically, Elian's crew is amazing. They're really good side characters in the crew that I cared about genuinely and that I wanted to see, and I wanted good things to happen for them. And then I think the last thing that I really loved in this book is the action scenes were actually really well written. Sometimes books don't always do a good job with action scenes, but I thought Christo did a really good job with action scenes. I thought that they were, like, you could visualize them really well, and that's what's really important when you are reading a book. You need to be able to sort of see it in your mind, and if you can't, then it's probably not the best written action scene. So yeah, so those are my 3 recommendations. I hope you have a good day, and see you again in a little bit. Bye-bye.